What's going on, guys? It's Erica with Not Your Average EDC, and today we have a review of the Spyderco Para 3 in K390 from Golden, Colorado, wearing Applied Weapons Tech Skinny Agent Scales in Tequila Sunrise color. We did the review of the Japanese K390 last night. That was ridiculously long and silly, but lots of good info in there nonetheless. This morning I woke up, had my coffee, we're good to go. So we're doing the review of the other K390 now. And this is also going to be a review of the scales, not necessarily the Para 3 as a whole design, because we've already done that review. That's actually in my reviews playlist, is just the Para 3 as a model in general. This is really focusing on how the steel performed and how these scales performed. So let's talk about the steel first. So this is K390. It's a tool steel. This one is from Golden, Colorado. Spyderco also does K390 over in Japan, which we know is a few points higher in heat treat than this stuff for some reason, not sure why. Through the extensive testing over the month, we decided that the Japanese K390 just tends to perform better all around than this. Not to say this is a bad steel though. The other K390 it held its edge better. It was a little toothier. It just performed better overall. And through my testing, I've decided that this is pretty darn good too. It's just a little more needy than the other K390. The other one was pretty comparable in my opinion to M4. People say that this is supposed to be comparable to 10V kind of. And yeah, this just feels more to me like S45VN, which I said in one of my other videos, which is not a bad steel at all. It's great, but I prefer toothier steels. I prefer the grit and the edge longevity that M4 provides me over S45VN. So this kind of felt like S45 on the stones. It felt like S45 in use, and I just prefer the other K390. But so this one did pretty well. I had a little trouble at first getting to know this steel. I tried sharpening it on water stones when it first needed a sharpening, and it just wasn't responding as well as I wanted it to. It wasn't giving me the feedback I wanted it to. The burr that it was creating was just a little fine for me and a little small. So then I threw it on a 600 grit DMT stone, and it was night and day difference. This responded very well to that. Good aggressive burr came up, sharpened it on that, and the performance that I got out of that lower grit sharpening, it was crazy, which I did make a video about. It's a few videos back. I had a whole pile of cardboard that this went through, and it just kept shredding. So in my opinion, through my testing, this is one of those steels that does really well at a 600 grit sharpening, and then you kind of just leave it at that. You don't have to go up any higher. It doesn't really need much more. This really does its best work at 600 grit DMT, and that's kind of it, which is cool because it doesn't need a ton of maintenance, and you don't have to go through 5 steps to get it sharp. One stone, you're good to go. And it held its edge for a really long time with that. It had a good amount of bite. Everything about it was good, really, really good. So the K390 from the States is an awesome steel. I'm kind of glad that I tested the other K390 at the same time as this, because I think that it made the review more realistic. I can't sugarcoat it and say that I like this as much as the other K390. I'm glad that I did them side by side to clearly in real time see that just one of them is better. You can't argue that. And we've done an entire month of use every single day. That's a lot of use. So, comparable to S45VN in my opinion. Obviously, this is not a stainless steel like S45 is, but patinas can be cool. Tool steels are cool, so if you don't mind that, and you want like a really good EDC steel, here it is. US made K390. Let's talk about the skinny scales. So these are from Applied Weapons Tech. They're called Agent scales. They also have the regular ones, but these are basically milled aluminum scales, Cerakoted, and they only run one of the liners in the body. This knife, when you get it from factory, comes with a liner on each side, but Applied Weapons Tech milled these scales so that you only have to put in the liner that allows the compression lock to work and you don't need the other one, which reduces weight and is actually really cool. So, as I have said before, every time that I've used Applied Weapons Tech scales, my knives are always centered with them. I have looked at these pretty in depth. They're just machined perfectly. They're really, really well done, guys. The milling is beautiful. A lot of time got put into creating these, making all of the contours and just everything about these is spot fucking on. I loved using these. I've mentioned in my other videos that the different grips that this allows you to do is really really useful. I like that we kind of have like a lack of ergonomics for the most part. We've got a little bit of stuff here, but very easy to do. All different types of grips, which I do at my job. I do a lot of cuts holding my knife like this, so I have more control over the very tip. These are very, very comfortable, very lightweight, beautifully done. Blade is centered. We had like the most minor issue with the pocket clip at the very, very beginning, which we ended up finding out was just my pocket clip. I thought it was like all of the right hand pair 3 clips from Lynch, but mine was warped, we found out. So that whole thing about the clip is like null and void at this point. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go back and watch the videos. Basically, I put a pair 3 clip on here from Lynch Northwest, and it was riding insanely close to the edge here, but through testing and fiddling around with things and talking with Applied Weapons Tech, we figured out that my clip from Lynch was just completely warped and it was sideways. And all the other clips like that did not ride that close. So as you can see, stock clip right up the middle, fabulous. We don't have any area to put a pocket clip on this side or anywhere else other than right here. So that could be a bummer to people, but the majority of us are right-hand tip-up carriers, so it is what it is. Installation was crazy easy. We have milling that's kind of like very minuscule. I hope you can see it's just kind of like a wave pattern almost. You can kind of sort of see it. It doesn't provide a ton of texture, nor does the Cerakote, but at the same time, this is kind of a design where you put your hand where it goes and it just locks in. Like, no matter how you're holding this, your fingers are kind of locked into this design, and I feel that whether this was the grippiest knife in the world or not, it doesn't really matter because your hand is actually doing the locking in, it's not the texture, right? So, all good stuff there. Action is fantastic. Access to the lock bar, perfect. Like I said, we have a whole bunch of chamfers and contours here that make it extremely, extremely comfortable to use and hold for a long time. Through processing produce and stuff at work, one of the things that I do is hold my knife like this or even like this because I'm usually processing something, trimming off stems, trimming branches, stuff like that. That is just continuously doing this type of motion here. No hot spots, no nothing at all. You really can't go wrong with these scales. There's not a single thing about them that I can say that's negative, genuinely. They're some of the nicest scales I've ever used. There's a lot of different, titanium, aluminum, G10, micarta scales on the market, skinny scales on the market. I'm just saying that these are the most comfortable ones I've ever used. The Cerakote held up, I would say, pretty well for what I was putting it through. I had this actually in my pocket, not clipped. I had it down there with like a flashlight, a Swiss Army knife, a pry bar, just like jingling around in my pocket on purpose to test the durability of this Cerakote, because a lot of people are buying scales that are colored because they want the scales to stay that color. So I purposely put this down in my pocket, jingling around with a bunch of other abrasive materials to see if it would wear down, and it did in a couple of spots, but for, 30 days of jingling around in a pocket for like 10 hours a day, this is still looking pretty darn good. So as you can see on, areas where it kind of protrudes, we have wear. Of course we do. So right here, all there, you can see kind of in here, we've got a little bit of the Cerakote disappearing. On the flats of the scales, we don't too much other than this area. But the flats look good. A little bit there. See what I'm talking about? It's kind of just the corners, guys. Other than that, it didn't really wear off. And this thing was just getting jingled around and beat to shit, on top of being used for a month straight for like 8 hours a day. That's just a lot for a knife to go through, and I think this looks pretty unscathed for all that it endured. Sorry that I'm so stuffy. My allergies are like brutal this year. I don't know if any of you guys have allergies, but they're just like, they are killing me this year. In my other K390 video, I brought out a few like blade shapes that are comparable, and I picked which one out of that grouping I preferred, which I will, give you a spoiler alert right now. It was not the Wharncliffe Delica. Like, that was not the winner in the group. With this, I don't have anything in my collection very comparable to this blade shape. I really don't. And I have a lot of knives. But the Para 3, the blade shape is just not super comparable to a lot of other things. It's very triangular, in my opinion, compared to a lot of other Spydercos. A lot of Spydercos have kind of that like leaf shape, and I have a lot of similar blade shapes to that. This I just don't. The only thing that I could find kind of comparable to that is my BGM mini spade. This is the closest I could get, guys. I really don't have any other folders with a blade shape similar to the Para 3. So this right here, my full flat ground BGM mini spade, that's the closest thing I could find to this. I also did test this for a month, so these, in my opinion, between stock thickness, blade shape, blade grind, all that good stuff, they were very similar. And if I had to choose which one I prefer, I would actually choose the Para 3, just because I feel that the width of this here is a little limiting. It's this is very much like a food prep chopper type knife, and it absolutely can be an EDC knife. That's what it was created for. I just feel that a little bit of a narrower reach works for me. So I would actually choose the Para 3 blade shape over the mini spade. I've said this before, but the Para 3, in my opinion, is one of the best EDC knives that's ever been made. Everything about it is absolutely fantastic. The only thing that I basically have to change every single time I get a Para 3 is putting my own little sharpening choil in there. I understand why Spyderco does not put those in for us. I don't agree. I understand why they don't, but I don't agree. If we sharpen our knives, it's dang near impossible to do it the right way if we don't have that choil. So I took a Dremel cutting wheel and just put the tiniest little notch in there so that I can actually reach that full heel. Sharpening was fantastic with that. It took literally 2 seconds with a Dremel cutting wheel. All set. I can recommend this in full. I can recommend the scales. I can recommend Applied Weapons Tech as a company. The Para 3 is one of the best EDC knives ever. I mean, everything about this is just so user-friendly. It's fantastic. I love everything about the Para 3. And this K390 is really good. It does not blow my socks off like the Japanese stuff, but it is dang good, and I really like how you get a patina. It's just beautiful. So yeah, hopefully that helps you guys decide on if you want to try K390, the differences between our, stuff, our Golden Colorado stuff and the Sekisei Japan stuff. The Para 3 in general is not a model that you should be sleeping on. I genuinely think that everyone needs one in their collection to at least try. That lanyard hole is nice and big too if you like lanyards like me. This is actually going to be sent off now to Indie Hammer. I'm sending the Delica in K390 to Shane. This one will go to my friend Eric for other people to try, because once I've used a knife, it's just like, why not share the glory with other people? So this will be sent off to my buddy to try out. Highly, highly recommend, guys. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. Thank you for watching. Go use your shit, learn how to sharpen your knives, and I will see you on the next video. Love you all.